like to call to order the November 12th, 2018 regular board meeting of the State College Area School District Board of Directors. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'd like to welcome all of you who are here this evening, as well as those of you who are viewing from home. I'd like to announce a few executive sessions. The board held an executive session October 8th on legal matters, student discipline, and personnel, October 22nd on security, property, and a legal matter, and an exec session prior to this meeting regarding security, property, personnel, and student discipline. Board members, do you have any communication items this evening? Okay, Dr. O'Donnell?
Yes. Just before we started the meeting, we had a little celebration with some students who led Operation Sunshine in the high school. Thank Mr. Merritt for working with our students and helping them support them through the project. And Helena Haynes is with us this night. She's our board rep for Marking Period 2. Helena, would you please share a little overview of the project and everything that went into it?
So it was a really great project. We started off having a meeting in Mr. Merritt's room, and it all kind of came together after that. We had groups of students working on advertising it, getting other schools involved and other people in the community. And it was really great seeing how all the different schools, the high schools, the middle schools, the elementary schools, all pulling together to get all the supplies. And we also were really thankful for the Clark family who brought all of it down to the school that we were giving everything to. And it felt really good to help people because we're such a privileged school district and community. So it was really great.
Yeah,
Thank you, Elena. I'll just share the names of the students who were on the leadership team that led this and appreciate the Clark family for the transportation on bringing everything to South Carolina. To the, North Carolina, and it was the public schools of Robeson County School District that benefited from your efforts. So, Helena Barron, Kao, Cam McCurdy, Isabel Snyder, Iris Lee, Roshni Raj, Abby Laporta, Krista Chen, Priya Mitra, Mishika Mehta, Stanley Hamilton, Jack Clark, Shane Ankney Rai, and obviously the Clark family for helping us transport everything. So thank you to everybody involved in such a wonderful project that really helped the community that got hit by some tough times. It is now. So if you didn't hear me, I can post that. So thank you very much. Thanks, Helena, for the recap.
Thank you.
I do have a couple other items here. This week is American Education Week to celebrate public schools and the vital role they play in our communities. In honor of the occasion, I want to thank our district's educators, all of our faculty, and all of our support staff throughout the school district that for their work day in and day out on behalf of our students. Their expertise and dedication truly shape the young lives and build better futures, and for that they're deeply appreciated. I know that we're working to perfect the cakes that'll go out and thank everybody, and I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend and takes time to give appreciation to people that are really having an impact on our children. Thank you.
Thanks.
Although Veterans Day occurred on Sunday, it was officially observed today, and accordingly, I'd like to acknowledge all the veterans who work in our district and thank you for your service to our country. Our schools have held various programs and classroom activities to commemorate the day, and I think you've probably seen some of the highlights in the media out there of some of the things going on in the district. To commemorate the day and honor both living veterans and those who died during military service. So thank you for helping preserve the important history and for paying respect to our fellow Americans who have served in uniform. A couple more items here. Congratulations to the Mount Nittany Middle School and Elementary School for staging their 4th annual clothing drive over the weekend. The faculty and students collected scores of donations so that the shoppers could browse for free clothing, and anything left was donated to charity. So thank you for all the work to help families in need. State High's football team season continues this Friday, and the state championship tournament will be in Hazleton against Delaware Valley High School in the first round of the state playoffs. So good luck to the high school team, and I know we have a lot of students making the trip. And then finally, I'd like to announce the State High Thespians will stage their fall production, The Tragedy of Macbeth, an adaptation of Shakespeare's work this Friday and Saturday at 7:30 p.m. and Sunday at 2 p.m. It'll take place in the high school auditorium next to the cafeteria, and tickets are $10 for adults and $8 for students, and can be reserved online or purchased at the door. So, very good.
Thank you.
Scottish play for those of us who are superstitious.
That's all I have for this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Board members, any other communication items? Okay. Then at this time on the agenda, we have time for public comment. If anyone would like to make a public comment. Okay, all right, seeing none, we'll move on to routine approvals. I'd like a motion to approve the routine approval listing as presented on the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? We'll have a roll call vote then.
Ms. Grant? Yes. Ms. Concepcion?
Yes.
Dr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Lazar?
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson?
Yes.
Mr. Leos?
Yes.
Ms. Zidney?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Mr. Dell?
Yes.
Okay, that item has passed. Moving on to action items. Item A is a motion to approve the 2017-2018 financial statement, management discussion and analysis, as presented in attachment 5A.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion on this? Okay, we'll have a roll call vote.
Ms. Concepcion?
Yes.
Dr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Lazar?
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson?
Yes.
Mr. Leos?
Yes.
Ms. Zidney?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Mr. Dell?
Yes.
Ms. Grant?
Yes.
Okay, that item has passed. Thank you, Randy and Donna. And for those of you who are here, this item has been discussed in committee, in our finance committee a few times, and also at the last board meeting. So, item B under action is a motion to approve secondary new courses and international baccalaureate course proposals as presented at the October 22nd, 2018 board meeting, and this is shown in attachment 5B.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Questions or discussion on these? Start over here.
Nope. Nope.
Dan?
Just thank you for putting together the outcomes in terms of the schedules that could result from participation in the coursework.
That's helpful. Anyone else over here? Laurel?
So we've got quite a few new courses here, including the full complement of IB courses that are being approved, and then that doesn't actually say they'll run. That will depend on the enrollment numbers, correct? And I went back and forth on how to vote on this. I think it's pretty clear they'll be approved. I have, though, some really significant concerns about the IB program. However, we've already put in, I think, tens of thousands of dollars with teacher training and resources that will stand our students very well, even if we don't move forward or if something changes with the IB program. So that's been a significant investment. But it appears to me that this program will largely draw students who are already at the high level that we have not, I haven't heard of. It may have been discussed, but I haven't heard how we are going to be moving things earlier in the school careers of students so that more students are prepared and ready to take AP courses. And so what I'm concerned about is that the same students who may already be taking, say, an AP English will instead take an IB English, and that we will be having fewer of each particular course, which may make schedule even harder, and ultimately mean that students have fewer choices as opposed to more choices when they look especially for electives. I appreciate the 4 schedules that we got showing how it can be done. But when you have, say, 3 AP Englishes and 3 IB as opposed to 6 AP, scattered through the day, that makes things more complicated.
No, it was not my impression that the IB program is limited to students who would be taking advanced coursework.
Well, no, I think it's not. My concern is neither are AP courses, but realistically, I haven't heard much about how we're going to be growing the pool of students who are capable and ready to do this. And that's one of the things I was hoping you would address.
Okay, Jackie?
We have talked about that multiple times throughout the Culture, Climate, and Learning committee sessions and the work of our IB coordinators and our head of schools for both programs, in which they're doing some outreach efforts to students early on. It's a little difficult to do too much outreach before we knew we were approved, and we recently have received that approval. So I know that Kathy Pechtold and Sharon, Dr. Perry have been working with their coordinators. They have some meetings scheduled, and they're working on those outreach pieces. courses. So those pieces have been planned for. They just haven't occurred more frequently because we were waiting on the authorization. And I just want to also make the point, too, that the addition of the IB courses does not in any way eliminate the option for students to take any AP or other advanced level courses. We are not eliminating any courses by adding the courses that we have. We will simply organize our master schedule based on the choice of families and students. Because this was an additional, the premise was this was an option for students in our community to take advantage of. And the philosophy of the IB program is completely aligned with our school district philosophy as well.
I think the difference between the SL standard level and then the higher level courses is a key distinction because if students want to expose themselves to an IB course, they don't have to be a student who's ready to take calculus at a college level, for example. And the standard level gives an opportunity for any student to successfully get exposed to the different experiences, including the international mindedness approach and things that IB has integrated. If you want to expand on that.
Well, I was going to follow up, because I remember when we discussed all the different programs of IB and what point of entry we might consider as a district getting involved in IB, whether it be elementary or middle level or high school. A lot of the philosophy of the entire IB program was strongly based on including groups of all socioeconomic and ability backgrounds. And in fact, I think it was at the elementary or middle levels, like programs have to show that they have participation of all those kind of groups of kids. So I would expect that that's also the case in the high school level as well, that kind of philosophy and approach in terms of what they offer.
And I think one of the reasons we really sought to have the career program added as a piece of it was that students who are attracted to the career programs and students who are attracted to AP programs are very different, sometimes a very different population, and this opens up avenues for kids with lots of different ability levels, lots of different learning styles, and lots of different career plans past high school. I think when we determined that that was the best direction to go, I think that was with that very thing in mind.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty significant, that is the area that I think we will really see an expansion. What I was going to ask is that when we do get those course enrollments, the request that is in February, that you come back to us with numbers to give us a sense of how this is playing out, including the different populations and whether we are able to attract them. The big thing, and I've brought this up before, and we'll deal with it as we move along, is the cost. We want our students to stretch. We want teachers to encourage those students to stretch. If they're sort of like, I'm not sure I can do it, go ahead and try. And with an AP class, they can try, and they can either continue the course but not take the test if they don't feel ready, or they can drop back a level, and that's fine. With IB, both the student and the district will be making a financial investment, and I'm concerned that that will make teachers hesitant.
About this at the last
Depends if they
meeting, though.
co-seed or, I mean, it really, you're right, they're absolutely, if they pursue the IB course as IB rather than co-seeding, then you're right, there's a cost.
Yeah, and I'm
which is
concerned that we need
comparable
to
to
be
AP.
careful that we don't let that limit, that teachers know that shouldn't be a limit, and that families know the support is there, and that we insist that students are able to try this. And we're going to have to come up with how we'll deal with it if a student feels it's not right. I mean, the data that we've submitted at the federal level shows that we do have a significant number of students who take courses and don't take the exam.
The
AP
plan-
courses, that is.
The plan we discussed is to follow the same protocol for students in need that we do currently follow for AP exams and so forth. We
Right.
have some protocols in place already.
And we'll be paying the registration fee for all students regardless of need, was
Right,
what
but
we had said.
they need to
right?
take the test if they're registering for it as an IB student and
Right.
to have it.
Exactly.
So it's not, we shouldn't have the same issue of students not taking the
shouldn't.
test.
I just also wanted to make the point that the courses in the IB course guide that are here for approval tonight are all of the same IB courses that were in the IB application.
That we already approved.
That we've already
Yes,
approved.
thank you.
Right.
Good point.
No, what you were saying is exactly what I was saying, I think, which is that with IB, you don't have that option, whereas we have had a significant number of students who have chosen to take the course, the AP course, but not the test. That's not an option for IB, and that's a
Right.
concern I have.
Yeah. So maybe those students are better off taking the AP course if they don't want to take.
But they're not all, yeah.
I think our plan is also to make sure that our counselors, our IB coordinators, our curriculum coordinators are all well-versed in the differences and the options so that parents and students can make the choice that's best fits them for their pathway. It's not about forging students into one path or another, but making sure that families have the right information to make the best choice for themselves.
Yeah, okay. Any other questions? Sorry, Gretchen?
I just wanted to thank you all so much. This is so exciting that we're getting IB and it's actually happening. And I read these course descriptions and I wish I could take them. So I just thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think it's a valuable choice we're offering families.
Ditto.
Our preliminary interest numbers that our coordinators have been working on are the reason for the grins from ear to ear because the numbers are
bit of
very.
interest.
I'm guessing you'll have good enrollment.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Yes, Jim.
So, yeah, this is where the rubber hits the road. I mean, it's pretty exciting. We've been talking about this for years, but now we get to enroll people.
5 years.
And, right. The one thing I'd like to say about the new courses is I really like the new science offerings, because I think they're half-credit courses, and they really kind of fulfill the objectives of like more integrated science and teaching sort of critical thought and problem solving. And so I really appreciate those courses and the descriptions. And then I also think that some of the techniques they'll be learning, they'll be able to work in a lab if they want to in college. And I think these courses are great prep for that. So I really commend the science department and you as the curriculum leaders that this is really some excellent offerings, I think, for our mostly seniors and juniors. But
We'd be remiss if we didn't thank the teachers who have put in a lot of extra time. This was obviously from the time we started, we just asked for teachers who had interest in learning more about IB programs and the course offerings. And from there, based on what we had teacher support for and interest in, is how we kind of formed the overall program offerings. And I think that the teachers deserve they did a tremendous amount of work together in their PLC time, as well as some weekends that they were away from their families to attend training. So we really appreciate everything they've done to help us get this program off the ground.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I think we'll have any public comment at this point. Okay. Then we'll take a roll call vote.
Dr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Fazzard?
yes.
Mr. Hutchinson?
Yes.
Mr. Rios?
Yes.
Ms. Zidney?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Ms. Bedell?
Yes.
Ms. Brandt?
Yes.
Ms. Concepcion?
Yes. Okay, that item has passed. Thank you so much. And thank you for,
Thanks,
I
everyone.
know this is years of work to get to this point, so thank you so much. All right, so item C is a motion to approve Lenovo servers to be directly purchased from Lenovo as the low-cost option in an amount not to exceed $63,283.20 as presented in attachment 5C.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any questions? Okay, I will have a roll call vote then.
Mr. Fazzard?
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson? Yes. Mr. Rios?
Yes.
Ms. Zidney?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Ms. Bedell?
Yes.
Ms. Brandt?
Yes.
Concepcion?
Yes.
Dr. Duffy?
Yes.
Okay, that item has passed. Item E is a motion to approve the bid awards for asbestos removal at Radio Park and Coral Street Elementary Schools to low bidder Sargent Enterprises as presented in attachment 5E.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any questions? Okay. All right, we'll have a roll call vote then.
Mr. Hutchinson?
Sorry, yes.
I have one question about that. And that is, we have already purchased a bunch of the projectors. Will this finish that out, or do we have more coming out?
Sorry, we're on asbestos removal.
I must have missed out. I heard the servers. I
No, I'm
missed the
sorry.
meeting.
You're,
The
That's
projectors?
what I
we
was
are on the projectors. I'm sorry. Yes.
I cannot answer that question. I know that we are purchasing on a just-in-time basis as well as quantity discount basis. I believe this will take care of at least part of the elementary schools, but I'm not sure if it'll take care of the entire elementary school.
So we may have another one.
Absolutely. And there may be another one for high school, too.
And the price actually came down like $10 a unit from the last time we did it, which is always nice.
I'm sorry, Laura, I think I read item E before I read item D.
That's why I got confused. I was
That's what I
asking
did.
David, where-
Yeah, I'm
okay.
sorry. Item D is a motion to approve the
Okay.
bid award for Epson projectors to low bidder CDWG in the amount not to exceed $141,000, as presented in attachment 5D.
So moved.
Second.
That's the one I had
That's
the
why.
question's been answered. That's why I was getting so
Yeah,
confused.
sorry. Yeah, my check mark was out of alignment here. Okay. All right, so that's been moved and seconded. And any other questions on that item? Okay, all right, we'll have a roll call vote then.
Okay, Mr. Hutchinson.
Yes.
Mr. Leos.
Yes.
Ms. Zidney.
Yes.
Dr. Bader.
Yes.
Ms. Dowd.
Yes.
Ms. Brandt.
Yes.
Ms. Concepcion.
Yes.
Dr. Duffy.
Yes.
Mr. Cazard.
Yes.
Okay, that item has passed. And item E is a motion to approve the bid awards for asbestos removal at Radio Park and Coral Street Elementary Schools to low bidder Sargent Enterprises as presented in attachment 5E.
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
that's been moved and seconded. Questions around this item? We'll have-
Have we worked with these guys before?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
All right, then we'll have a roll call vote.
Mr. Leos.
Yes.
Ms. Zidney.
Yes.
Dr. Bader.
Yes.
Ms. Dowd.
Yes.
Ms. Brandt.
Yes.
Ms. Concepcion.
Yes.
Dr. Duffy.
Yes.
Mr. Cazard.
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson.
Okay, that item has passed. Item F is a motion to approve permission to bid renovations for Panorama Village Building as presented in attachment 5F.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. I'm sure there's probably questions on this one, since we haven't discussed it in the full board setting prior to now, but this was an item we did discuss in the Facilities and Grounds Committee last week. Maybe, Ed, would you like to just give a quick overview?
Sure. This is really, I've titled it a reconfiguration project because it's not really a renovation. It's more dividing spaces that have already been renovated. What we're looking at doing is taking the current meeting room C and creating three office spaces within what was meeting room C and reducing the size of the meeting room. So we're basically cutting it in half to make a smaller meeting room and some private office space. We're going to add some partitions for additional offices in the computer service area and another partition in the staff lounge area for some storage. This is basically creating additional people space to help compensate for the potential closure of the Nittany Avenue building, increase some storage space, and add some versatility in terms of staff assignments within this building.
All right, any questions? So this is just bidding it, it's not, you know, it's
Permission to
not,
bid, yeah, at
it's
this
not,
point.
it's not a commitment to the project at this point.
I assume there's a door into the storage space?
Yeah,
There will be.
There will be.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a
Rough
very
drawing.
rudimentary drawing, yes.
All right, any other questions? Any public comment? We'll have a roll call vote then.
Ms. Zidney.
Yes.
Dr. Bader.
Yes.
Ms. Dowd.
Yes.
Ms. Brandt.
Yes.
Concepcion.
Yes.
Dr. Duffy.
Yes.
Mr. Cazard.
Yes.
Mr. Leos.
Yes.
Okay, that item has passed. Thank you. At this point, we're going to skip forward to information discussion item 6B, budget development capital financing analysis, prior to voting on the Memorial Field project, just for the flow of the meeting.
So if we're looking at attachment 6B, capital expenses financing update, much, if not all of this information was already viewed and/or discussed in Finance Committee last week. The purpose of providing this update to you now primarily is to review these projections in order to release bid documents for Memorial Field. We want to make sure that you have a comfort of where these projections were and maybe have moved since the last time we've discussed them. There are further updates to be expected in the very near future, especially prior to the actual accepting of bids for the Memorial Field project. Some of these updates will include an analysis of borrowing versus use of cash reserves already included in the capital reserve fund, timing of the debt issuance, interest rate structure, interest rate earned on invested bonds, proceeds prior to the spending of those funds, estimated costs for future projects, capital reserve fund contribution rates from the general fund, and also a schedule of completion and borrowing for all projects included. There's various schedules that have been included for you, which we did go through in depth in committee, and we can go through those at whatever appropriate level is necessary tonight. These schedules include a capital reserve fund projection, which does include debt service, either actual that has been incurred or projected estimates, which are noted as well. They project funding necessary outside of capital project budgets, and then also projected contributions and interest earnings. There's debt service estimates, there are general fund balance projections, and there are capital project budget expected expenditures. Obviously, these are projections, and they are only good, as we talked about in committee, until they are changed by something either in or outside of our control. Obviously, the Finance Committee recommendations for future updates also includes a discussion of building life cycle estimates, estimating future project costs, enrollment projections in terms of building facility needs. This update, again, it's our goal that this update would provide confidence to move forward with the Memorial Field project to the bidding phase, yet make the board aware that the Administration and Finance Committee expects significant analysis and evaluation of the district's capital financing capacity to continue to occur in the very near future. We talked about not only the possibility of separate Finance Committee meetings dedicated only to this item or this subject, as well as potentially separate work sessions with the entire board on this subject, just because of the multitude and importance of this subject. We do have all of the financing in place for the high school. We have all of the financing in place for the elementary projects. And we have cost estimates that have been included in your documents for the request for Memorial Field tonight as up to date as possible. What will give us further refinement of those estimates would be going to bid for those projects. Then beyond that, we have had estimates for debt service for athletic field master planning, which also would include playgrounds, and then Park Forest Middle School. And I did reach out to our current architect, Crabtree Warbaugh, for an analysis of our current estimate for middle school without talking about what that new middle school looks like, but I did ask them to do a low and a high range, or a mid and a high range, and we still seem to be at this point in time even forecasting five or more years out to begin that planning process. A good solid estimate, we believe, at this point in time, not knowing the full scope of the project, at $60 million. So we'll continue to refine that and look at it. We also expect to bring our financial advisor forward to talk about different possible funding models and how this could affect our budgetary plan as well. So there's a lot of different items, pieces and categories that go into these projections that we work with. Each time we look at the analysis, we're just trying to share and increase your understanding so that you have a better understanding, more clear understanding, and are confident in moving forward in this next process.
I think one of the things that we talked about in committee that was, as we go forward, that we were going to want to be a little bit all-inclusive in how we look at capital financing, and any other committee members if you want to chime in, but that the cost of maintaining the buildings that we've just invested in, what does that mean in terms of if there's increased personnel costs for maintenance purposes, or some of the buildings that are like a little bit further back in the life cycle now, like Easterly Parkway or Park Forest Elementary, like what are the kind of investments we need to make into the facilities that we have existing, just to make sure that they last a long time and we're not facing sort of a similar situation, you know, a few decades from now with facilities that are failing. So, Scott, anything else
Yeah,
on
and
that?
just, both sides of that conversation being, there's substantial funds that have been expended in the last 5, 10, 15 years to maintain aging buildings that theoretically should not be incurred on new buildings. So there's definitely a trade-off. And Amber's right, that was the conversation, is taking really a holistic view of the total cost of our facilities and making sure that we have that, budgeted appropriately.
One of the points in the discussion had to do with continuing to be vigilant about recognizing, keeping an eye on the ball, if you will, in terms of understanding the ongoing needs of the school district, in terms of the student population demographics, just one example, one moving part in this equation, but that we can't rest on our laurels. We can't just sit back and say, we've accomplished the projects we have in place, we can take a break. This is about being vigilant about this, anticipating the future. And looking at it, and one of the things I thought to discuss with you, Randy, was the question about what other systems or known methods may exist that we could find out through PASBO or other resources that could help us make these decisions that we're making on an ongoing basis about the need for continued contributions to capital reserve, to consider the role of upkeep and maintenance. All those various elements to the projects involved, so that we can understand how that may play out over time and how best to plan, basically. But what could PASBO inform us about this in some way?
Laurel?
Just to point out. Sorry, to point out that on the attachment with this, on page 10, we really give a very nice detail of what some of those ongoing maintenance projects are for people who are looking at making sure that we are budgeting and planning on the maintenance piece of things.
Right. Yeah.
So one of the schedules that I was asked for in a graphical form that just didn't have a chance since Thursday to prepare for you, that will be in the next round, will be what are our entire commitments on an annual basis to capital. And when we look at that, what we're really looking at is all debt service outside of the referendum debt for the high school, because that comes from a specific revenue stream. The capital reserve transfer, and then also what we call our capital projects or deferred maintenance transfer. And that page 10 is how we expect to spend that approximately $2 million in capital reserve transfer, deferred maintenance, each of the next 4 years. And as we talked in committee, and I think that we've talked in other places before, that analysis looks very, very different than it did 5 and 7 years ago, when we were putting a majority of that money into the high school directly, just to keep systems going and keeping that building functioning. And what our goal is, as Ms. Concepcion mentioned, Easterly Parkway, we want to make sure that that building, which was renovated 15, almost 20 years ago maybe now, and Mount Nittany Middle School, we want to make sure that we don't have to require holistic renovations on our buildings and shut them down and have to make the student body and our staff and faculty go through the pain of that. We want to, and as an example, we've already, through the Capital Projects Fund, we've already replaced a roof at Mount Nittany. We've done a new paving project just last summer. We're looking at HVAC system. And keep in mind that some districts, many districts are, of different sizes, but many of them are somewhat smaller than us, or considerably smaller than us. They will borrow the money just to repay to repair the roof and replace the roof, or do a paving project. And what we're hoping to do is not do that at this time, is we're hoping that $2 million plus that we're setting aside for capital will allow us to be more thoughtful and planful. And that schedule on page 10, we do plan in the next year or so to be able to give that to you in a 5 and 10 year increment, so that we can be more planful and you are able to understand. Now, again, some of those things, they may change. Easterly Parkway Chiller went a little bit before we were expecting it to, this past year, so we have to move this and sacrifice that. But a lot of these things, as long as we're in the maintenance and not the direct replacement, we can do that.
Any other questions for anyone?
Don, is there anything
Points of
else?
discussion?
Thank you.
This is terrific. Yeah.
Yeah, well done.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, so item G on the agenda is a motion to approve permission to bid Memorial Field project as presented in attachment 5G. Okay.
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded.
So if I could just make a few comments on this project as well, not to steal any of Ed's thunder on this one, but Ed's been talking about Memorial Field for probably almost his entirety of career here at the district.
That's correct. 22 years.
So the administration is recommending permission to advertise and bid Phase 2 of the Memorial Field project. You may remember that on March the 12th of this year, the final plans for the project were accepted, with the bidding phase being delayed due to not financial capacity, but internal resource capacity constraints because of the multitude of projects that we are undertaking. We are asking for your approval to complete those bid documents and release them. And the bidding would take place in the late winter or early spring, followed by the project starting in early summer. Completion date is currently scheduled for spring of 2021 sports season. An alternative calendar without disruption of the construction progress would potentially complete the project for the fall 2020 sports season. And that's been included in your packet tonight, and we did talk about that in committee for the first time last week. We did that because we wanted to gauge the board members in committee their desire to move that forward in a discussion with you. That would mean that the fall season of 2019 sports season would need to be held at another location, and since we don't have another stadium, we would be looking at different alternatives. Whether we could even retrofit something in our district or what our options are. We aren't aware of all of those options yet. We wanted to first gauge the taste of the board to even entertain that discussion. The reason that we, as an administration, believe that it's our due diligence to have that discussion is because the cost estimates are between $500,000 and $900,000 lower for that shortened time frame rather than the original completion schedule. That being said, there would be other costs that could outweigh that or offset those savings. So what we decided in committee is that we'd like both calendars, both construction schedules and both calendars to be bid, one as the base bid and another as an alternate, so that we would have more time to understand what our hurdles and obstacles are to overcome to allow for that playing season to occur in another location, as well as then on bid day, we would understand the financial reality of the savings, and then we could have that information for you. And we could evaluate that as well. Obviously, that would take a lot of communication with our sports and athletics communities, as well as you, the board. So upon approval to move the project to the bidding phase, this would authorize the completion and release of the bid documents. The board would then take action at a future meeting to accept or reject the bids, and that would be that's the next step, and we expect that to be late winter or early spring. And did I miss anything?
Randy covered up, pretty much all of the details. The only thing I would highlight a little bit is the reason that we're recommending to bid this both ways is because, if you recall, the original calendar had us starting the project in the spring, working through the spring and summer, then stopping the project for fall sports, basically having the contractor demobilize, remove themselves from the site, tidy everything up and ready it for a sports season, then go away for 3 or 4 months, come back in the end of November, beginning of December, remobilize, set everything up, continue construction for another 9-month period, stop again, demobilize. So they're really almost bid, and then come back for a third time. So they're almost bidding 3 individual projects in their mind because of the setup, tear down, setup, tear down. That's really hard to estimate. So we put together with Macero our best shot at what we think that's worth. However, it could be more, it could be less, and it's really difficult. Bidding is an exercise of trying to both understand the market as well as get into the bidder's mind in terms of how they approve a project. And this is a difficult project to really get in the bidder's mind. So we really think to fully understand where the financial differences lie, we need to bid this both ways and then make a decision at the point where we actually have some numbers to work with.
Okay. Any questions or discussion? Yeah. I mean, I think the point that being able to make a decision about which timetable to approve when we get down to it, having the actual cost difference in front of us is pretty critical, so.
And there's a lot of other details to be considered as well, and we have
Yeah.
time to determine
Yeah, but
those.
we have that window of opportunity to work on that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We would do a lot of work on the Plan B
Mhm.
if the second or the alternate was selected, to make sure that you understand what does that look like for those students.
Correct.
And costs, obviously.
Dan?
This is a question actually more for Tim than anybody else. In terms of the bidders, they'll have, if in the extended schedule, they'll have blocks of time when their employees would not otherwise be, or would not be working, and they might be involved in other projects. They might wind up working someplace else and not coming back. They have to be replaced with somebody else. How does that play into the bidding process, do you think, for contractors when they have to deal with personnel, the comings and goings, in addition to the setting up and breaking down?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a difficult thing for a company to try to absorb a short-term, like, blackout in work, essentially, because you do need to keep your good employees busy, otherwise they're going to disappear. So you get them onto other projects, but then it's really tough to get people back. And we see that a lot of times, even at the high school, a little bit with some of the smaller subcontractors that are in and out so frequently. Getting them to come back, and those specific guys that we're used to working with to come back to the job can sometimes be difficult.
So in that respect, pragmatically, it's better to have a continuous construction process rather than one that's interrupted.
Yeah, I mean, from a purely construction standpoint, it just makes all the sense to have a continuous schedule.
Right, and I don't mean in any way to understate the implications for the student athletes in terms of the changes in venue that they might be involved with, but I think in terms of understanding the construction process, that's good to know. Thank you.
And then having it done sooner for that fall of 2020 season that's a plus too.
So we either impact one season drastically or 2 seasons moderately. So there's that as well.
And have the benefit of the new facility sooner. Okay, so it sounds like we'll be looking for this to come back then when we have bids in, so. All right.
We were looking for
We
an
have to vote.
action
We
for
have a-
permission.
Right, yeah. So, any further discussion then? Okay. Laurel?
Just to thank you. I appreciated that we took the time because we were so busy to delay this a little bit, but it's also good to finally be moving forward with it. And thanks for all your work along the way with that.
Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, we'll have a roll call vote then.
Okay, Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Ms. Bedell?
Yes.
Ms. Brand? Yes. Ms. Concepcion?
Yes.
Dr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Bizarre?
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson? Yes. Mr. Leos?
Yes.
Ms. Zidney?
Yes.
Okay, that item has passed. So moving to item H then, a motion to approve elementary school project change orders as presented in attachment 5H.
So move?
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Okay, then we'll have a roll call vote.
Ms. Bedell?
Yes.
Ms. Brand? Yes. Concepcion?
Yes.
Dr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Bizarre?
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson? Yes. Mr. Leos?
Yes.
Ms. Zidney?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes. Okay, that item is passed. Item I is a motion to approve the high school project change orders presented in attachment 5I.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any questions? Okay, we'll have a roll call vote then.
Ms. Brandt?
Yes.
Ms. Concepcion?
Yes.
Dr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Cazard?
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson?
Yes.
Mr. Leos?
Yes.
Ms. Zidney?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Ms. Bedell?
Yes. Okay, that item is passed. Item J is a motion to approve 2 change orders regarding high school crosswalks presented in attachment 5J1 and 5J2.
So moved?
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Looks a little different than last time we saw it here, so.
Yeah, we've been several months at Facility and Grounds Committee talking about crosswalks, and as a result of at least 2 months' worth of discussion, we are bringing forth a credit of at least $4,000 to modify some of the aspects of the painting of the main high school crosswalk, as well as the O'Brien Lane crosswalk. And then in a separate action, looking for change in an amount not to exceed $15,000 to add a similar crosswalk at the bike path, which would include some moderate extension of Milling to Westerly Parkway. And the thought there would be that Westerly Parkway and all the crosswalks across the campus would be similar and create a contiguous look across the entire campus, entering, depending on which side you enter, entering at the bike path or O'Brien Lane and proceeding throughout the campus.
Okay, any questions? Okay, all right, any public comment? We'll have a roll call vote then.
Are we doing each one separate? So we're just doing J1?
Well, I guess the motion is to approve the 2 change orders.
Yeah, we brought them as a single item with 2 change orders, unless there's a desire to split them.
Unless
I
anyone
think
wants to
that's the
pull
way
them
we would
apart.
take it.
Concepcion?
Yes.
Dr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Cazard?
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson? Yes. Mr. Leos?
Yes.
Ms. Zidney?
Yes.
Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Ms. Bedell?
Yes.
Ms. Brandt?
Yes.
Okay, that item has.
Thanks for all that work that you did.
Yeah,
I know,
thank
because
you.
not being on that committee, it really shaped up very nicely. I meant to mention that. Thank you. And all the work the committee did.
They'll be added in, they'll have this.
Thank you. So next item on the agenda, under information discussion, we have a research proposal on post-secondary transitions for workers with intellectual disabilities. This is shown in attachment 6A, and we have Sharon Salter and Will Stout at the table with us, along with our researcher. So, welcome.
Thanks. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. I'll just say real quickly, and then I'll let Glenn talk really more than me. I was very excited when he came to me and asked about doing some research with our students in our LifeLink program. We have a variety of disability categories of students up there. They're all different developmental delays. This is our 17th year with our LifeLink PSU program and our 25th year with our LifeLink apartment program. And since we started our LifeLink PSU program, we've not benefited from anyone from Penn State stepping up to do some research with our students. So I was pretty excited that Glenn said, hey, how about we come do some stuff with your kids and gather some data for you related to work and getting these students out into the workforce. So I was very excited that he wanted to do this. So I'll turn it over to Glenn.
Great. Thank you, Sharon. And good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us here tonight.
Is that green?
It's not green. Now it's green. All right. Yeah, so a little bit about me. So I'm a professor in the Smeal College of Business and the Management Department. I've been at Penn State for 11 years. My wife and 3 kids, we moved here 11 years ago. I do research on identity-based issues, so how our work affects who we are and how the workplace affects us. And the past few years, a couple of colleagues and I have been focusing on workers with various types of disabilities. So we've done research on workers that are on the autism spectrum and the challenges they face in the workplace, as well as on job coaches that help workers in the workplace and how they are sort of a bridge in employment. So the next thing that we'd like to study is the LifeLink PSU program, given that it is designed to be a bridge between the high school experience and full-time employment afterward, for us, it's an interesting thing to study in terms of identity transitions. But pragmatically, it's an important thing to study because not just here, but across the country, workers with various types of disabilities are at a huge disadvantage in terms of getting and keeping jobs. And so we'd like to understand, both for the students here, but also throughout the United States, what's working in terms of helping them to get and keep jobs. And so we'd like to be able to talk with students, talk with the mentors that are part of the program. These are Penn State students that volunteer a lot of their time to help students there. Talk with the teachers and faculty members of the classes that the students take. So really just trying to understand the LifeLink system and what's working, and also talk with alumni of the program to see how the program has helped them and what benefits they've seen in the workplace, so we can try to replicate that for students that are going through the program now. So that's sort of the gist of it. In terms of funding, we're using funding from Penn State that we have, so we don't need any funding from the school district. It really is just a question of permission, and our approach is sort of a collaborative one. You know, when we met with Sharon, said, what's going to be useful for you to understand, and what can we do to bring that sort of collaboration together?
So it seems like the research you do could help inform our programs as well going forward.
That's what I hope for.
Great. All right. Any questions around the table here? Dan?
I just want to comment. This is really exciting. I was working in the district. I was introduced to the LifeLink PSU program, and I think in terms of just commenting about it right in this conversation, I think it's important to recognize that the LifeLink PSU program provides opportunities for kids within their basic education program. In other words, they might be pre or just post-graduation, but they're still, until age 21, eligible for an educational experience under their IEP. That the introduction or the development of LifeLink PSU is so much more powerful in terms of the exposure of these young people to really complicated environments that they could never have if they worked in their home school within the context of a traditional special education program. This is so incredibly unique in terms of its opportunity, and among the things this research will do is to spread the word about that nationally in terms of the importance of engaging young people who have just graduated technically or may still be graduating under their IEP in the future, to have this kind of exposure to these challenging environments in which they can be coached and supported. And this fits within the district's commitment to the center-ready emphasis on soft skills development, because a lot of what happens in Penn State and LifeLink PSU is organized around teaching collaboration skills, direction following, working with others, showing up on time, all those kinds of things are all in there. They're part and parcel of a lot of what takes place. So I'm really excited about this opportunity to analyze and assess that and inform us about it, and also to inform the world about all the good work that happens here. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments?
I did, Professor Kreiner. I think you're right to point out the trouble, the transition afterwards, and I've gotten to know a lot of those parents lately, and I don't know that I heard you mention that you're going to interview alumni of the program, but certainly are there their parents too, or you would assume their parents would be there.
Yeah, exactly. What we put in the IRB was to talk to the students themselves, the mentors, the Penn State students, the teachers and interns at LifeLink, faculty members at Penn State, family members such as parents of the students, and those who had graduated from the program.
Okay, great. Because that's a particular concern of mine, getting to know some of these people, is when they age out of the program, what opportunities are available, and do they have sufficient skills to, say, continue in a job, and that they get through this program, or they get leads on through this program. So
yeah, well, and to your point, so much of this involves system thinking, and the family members are such a huge part of each student's system that to not include them, we definitely would be a mistake. So we want to be able to see sort of each student, what's their unique story and the contributing factors to success.
Great, thank you.
Dr. Greiner, I wish you well with this. I'm excited to see what we learn through your study because from my experience, and Sharon, we just had a recent visit, we have a lot of our students that are in job placements while they're in the LifeLink program, and because a lot of them come back for the evening shindig, I forget the formal name, on a
Late
regular
night on
basis.
Wednesdays?
Yeah. So
Or graduation are you talking about?
that too. To see, how successful are they afterwards. Seems like several students remain in the job that they were placed in
That's our
while
goal.
they were with us. To be interested to see how we could learn from these experiences. And so your second question about improvement on these systems, so that when we make these placements, should they be successful and students want to stay in them, that they have the opportunity. So I think the relationships that we've built with employers throughout the community for the program has been remarkable, and I think our job coaches are, a big part of it. But
Yeah.
I'm anxious to see what your feedback is and what your findings are. This is very important because obviously some of those experiences don't work out.
Yeah. And that is, I found it interesting when I met with Sharon when she said, we've been doing this 17 years, no one's come to study us. I was surprised because it's such an interesting thing to study, both from, again, our vantage point, but also just pragmatically. It seems like such a great model that could be shown to other school districts and other universities to develop such a collaborative program.
And we have lots of qualitative comments and reports from parents and students and mentors and interns, but nothing that has been done systematically and gathered and done.
How to compile all of that would be really good for you to have.
And the other thing is Mrs. Canizaro, our new teacher in the program now they have entrepreneurship going on because they have a little business.
Business 101,
they start.
yeah.
So how does that interface with this? Because it's not technically a separate job,
math
but
class.
there's money changing hands there,
It's
and
her
they're
math
selling
class,
some
yeah.
pretty cool stuff. Oh, that's math.
It's
Okay.
math. Business 101, yep.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very fun. And I will take advantage of the fact that I'm here in front of the board and invite you all to come visit this program if you haven't been there. I would love to set that up. And
I'd like to.
they'll interview you if you go up.
They grill
Ask
you.
Bob.
They'll grill you.
We had visitors last week that came up from Eastern Lancaster School District. 3 people came up, and they split the kids in 3 groups, and each asked them interviews and then had to introduce the person who was there, and yeah, it was great. But you got put under the fire.
These guys enjoy it.
Yes,
No,
they
it
would
was a lot
enjoy
of
it.
fun,
But I'd
and,
love to bring you up.
schedule.
Yeah.
I would think, this will be really useful to us, but it might be a great presentation at Pennsylvania School Board Association or National School Board Association as well when you finished your project, that other school districts could benefit from having your lens on it rather than just us promoting our
National Transition
program.
Conference, too. Yeah, that happens in August.
Can I just
Campus.
offer a thought? Something that strikes me as particularly interesting about this study is that it's not coming from a person who's studying education. It's coming from the College of Business. And it makes me wonder what kinds of relationships this kind of approach can help us build with more businesses in the community, or even thinking about the ways that we fund programs to highlight it from this particular point of view might open up some doors that perhaps we had never considered in relationship building. So I love that you're interested from the College of Business. I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Well, I think there are a lot of opportunities for bridges. I've already started talking to people in the Smill College of Business about things they can do. Like, we have an employment office with several staff members. They could come down and say, what is this? What does it mean to prepare for a job interview, right? If you have various types of disabilities, what does that mean? It could stretch our staff folks as well as help the students, and thinking about advising and corporate connections. There's all sorts of different ways where you take a different vantage point from that business lens as opposed to solely educational.
Yep, absolutely.
Great.
So thank you.
So it might be helpful to move this to action this evening if
Yes.
we're interested in moving forward.
Propose we move this study to action.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. All in favor of moving this to action?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Would you like to make a motion to approve?
I would. I'd like to make a motion to approve the research study, post-secondary transitions for workers with intellectual disabilities.
A second motion?
That's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? Okay. Any public comment? Okay, we'll have a roll call vote then.
Okay, Dr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Hutchinson? Yes. Mr. Leos?
Yes.
Ms. Zidney? Yes. Dr. Bader?
Yes.
Ms. Dell?
Yes.
Ms. Bryant? Yes. Concepcion?
Yes. Okay, that item has passed. Thank you very much, and thanks for
Thank you all.
Thanks for taking your evening to come talk with us about this. So, thank you.
Let you talk.
I didn't have anything to say.
I'm
Well, the
that
only
way.
thing that I will say is that Sharon did bring this to me in August, and we were a little busy in August and September. But as I reviewed this, I mean, obviously it's worth it, and she came to me every week and asked me about this study. So thank you for approving it tonight.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Great. So next item on the agenda is item C under district goal category policies. We're going to be looking at revisions for policy 009, policy initiation, and policy 821, weapons, and this is shown in attachment 6C. Okay, and I think we'll have Linda Pierce at the table with us to go over these with us.
And 009 has been discussed at committee, so if
Yeah.
anyone wants to share any perspectives there, and then you see all the edits that you have there on the draft that were discussed. I don't know if anyone from committee wants to weigh in on anything there before we move into the proposed new policy.
One of the things, sitting on the policy committee, one of the things I think this is a practical aspect, but you'll see the multiple references, citations in which the term guidelines is replaced by administrative regulations, which follows from the change in nomenclature that we instituted about a year and a half ago. So these changes are consistent with the effort to
Correct.
move the language more in that direction in terms of the terms we're using in the policy manual.
Anything else?
I looked at it very carefully. It looks great.
Laurel?
Could you just talk about the stricken line and what the rationale was behind striking that?
If the board and/or administration finds that it is frequently departing from policy?
Right, why should we not
My
revisit?
recollection is we found that that was problematic, that shouldn't be occurring, so.
Yeah.
The consensus in the committee is that, of course, we would do that. We don't, we don't need to put that in every policy, and it seemed unnecessary.
And we shouldn't be departing from policy. I mean, the organization and the function
Right.
of the district is based around compliance, if you will, with the policy as written. So there really shouldn't be many examples where you're departing from policy.
Yeah, the sentence before it is such an odd sentence to me that it sort of begged the sentence following it, because it sort of says, well, you can depart. And so to me, that sentence that's been stricken really dealt with, is it a thing that happens once every 5 years versus once every week? It's the word frequent was the one that struck me, because you're right, we shouldn't be departing. Every now and then, things happen. But, so I was curious what the discussion had been. It was basically that since it sounds like since it shouldn't happen, why put it in there?
I agree, the sentence right prior to that is a little, I'm not.
It's the thing that gives me pause.
The only policy I can think of where the board does give some discretion does relate to policy where it involves student discipline and expulsion. It
Right.
looks at a lot of dynamics of a student situation, says the superintendent. But if there's a policy violation, we've always met with the board to review it. So we've never taken discretion under that policy and done something without having an executive session conversation about that.
Right.
If a policy includes room for discretion, then you're not departing from
That's what
policy.
I
Yeah.
thought too, yeah.
And that's been my impression, that those discipline things do say, discretion of the superintendent with consultation or whatever.
Right.
Well, the stricken line, to me, actually did add something, though I understand the rationale of the committee. it added something to temper the previous section, the previous sentence.
Yeah, although I think, I'm not, yeah, maybe it's not the case, though. So maybe, in some cases, maybe it means that we need to adhere to the policy, not change it. Like, it's really idiosyncratic, depending on what's going on,
Yeah.
so.
It kind of opens the door where, too wide, perhaps, where it needs to be more narrowly defined.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so then weapons. And this is a new policy that we did.
This particular policy is new. It is based very, very much on the student policy for weapons. The reason that we are suggesting we have a policy that applies to the community at large is because it's not just students who are prohibited from bringing weapons into one of our buildings. So language is very, very similar, but again, applies to everybody.
I recall prior to this coming up in the committee, there was some discussion around what to do with things that are considered self-defense. How did you handle that issue?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Self-defense.
In other words, if a teacher's carrying something in that for self-defense reasons, cannabis or something like that, is that, how did you resolve that?
The answer from Dr. Etter.
There are certain things that would be unlawful under any circumstances to have in a school environment, certain types of weapons. Mace or pepper spray for the intended purpose, used in that fashion, I would not consider it a weapon in violation of the policy or any applicable law. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
So I think back, for example, that we had years ago in a situation where a student was using a pencil in a aggressive manner. And a pencil in that situation was considered by a federal court judge to be a weapon, whereas a pencil in its ordinary usage obviously is not a weapon.
So that's understood. We don't have to say it.
Yeah. Okay, Laurel?
Can you just talk about what authorized law enforcement in this context means?
The first thing that comes to my mind is a police officer,
Okay.
a sworn police officer.
So I'm thinking of, say, a military person. Would that not apply
Not
to
law
them?
enforcement personnel. No. They're not allowed to be law enforcement.
Unless the governor directs the military to enter our schools, no, that would not be allowed.
Someone that would have jurisdiction in our area.
Okay.
So if there was a call out, the Easterly Parkway incident last year, we had
Right.
police from all the different departments on campus down there, so they were all lawful.
And they have to be there in their capacity as a, like, we're talking about on duty, not, someone coming for an open house or who's off duty. The understanding is that.
I'm thinking of, say, a parent who may, as part of their job, legitimately have a weapon, but is not on the premises as an authorized law enforcement. That this would apply to that person.
I think so.
So it's whether you're authorized on the premises. That's what I'm trying to get at.
My understanding was that they would not be carrying a weapon onto our property unless they were coming on the property in their official capacity.
And the one other question was about public vehicle, a catabus or something. Because our school buses are school property, correct?
Not all of them. Well, I mean, as far as ownership or contractual relationship, and half of the school buses that transport our students, Randy can correct me, are owned by contractors with whom we have a contractual relationship.
So-
Not technically owned by us.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out why the word public was in there as opposed to just any vehicle that's taking our students. I'm sorry, I'm on line under policy.
Under policy in the first
It
paragraph.
says onto any public vehicle providing transportation. And I wondered why the word public as opposed to any vehicle.
That came out of either section 907 or 912, so because I copied and pasted, I cannot
Okay.
explain.
Okay, I didn't know if it had been discussed, that was what I,
Let us look at that a little bit more and we'll get back to it.
thank you.
That, if it came from state stuff, it might be because, I mean, in Philadelphia, they used to ride SEPTA buses instead of
Sure.
school, so it may be covering some of those urban places where school children ride. So it may just be, if you pulled it from the state stuff, that might be why. Because I'm pretty sure Philly kids ride
Well,
SEPTA buses.
And our students use Fullington sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's private, but yeah.
So if we just struck public from
Yeah.
that sentence, that would probably, because,
It would have the same meaning.
Yeah.
For our intents, I would think.
right. and it
Yeah, I
would
think
be-
that's our intent is,
Yeah.
So maybe we'll let Dr. Etter take a look and then we'll circle back, or, for the next meeting when this comes back up again, for the second reading. Okay. Any other questions on the weapon policy?
Thanks for your hard work
Yeah.
on this.
Thank you.
I got to sit through a couple of the meetings, and they were quite diligent.
Thanks, Linda.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And thanks to that committee. This last year was a lot of heavy lifting coming into this year. I know we have a few things on the docket as well.
Okay, so board committee reports. We'll have a Culture, Climate, and Learning Committee meeting report.
It's mostly in the minutes, I think.
Okay. Facilities and Grounds Committee report.
We dealt with much of it today. We talked about the crosswalks, which we dealt with today. We also went further in talking about the ramps at the north and south building, I guess, and talked about, in particular, with the new parking lot that's being paved and the curbs going in, that we would be looking carefully at that, and that the music department is still sort of figuring out exactly what the best situation would be for them in terms of ramps for moving things to the field. We talked about Memorial Field, we talked about Panorama, and upcoming North High School renovation projects, which would give the physical plant an actual space to be and would give our RIT classrooms some new space. So.
Thank you. So Finance and Audit Committee report. I'm a member of that committee. Scott stepped out. So in addition to the capital financing report, which was this evening, we spent time with the auditors and went through the audit for the last fiscal year and had some discussion with them around their findings, and it was a very positive report.
Very affirming, among the things, and they've mentioned this before in their reports, but they really appreciate not just the assistance, but the depth, if you will, that goes into the day-to-day practices and procedures on the part of the business office, and how that makes their job more productive, if not easier. I mean, they were very complimentary towards our practices, the availability of our staff, and the thoroughness of their work. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so upcoming committee meetings, we'll have a Communications Committee meeting Tuesday, the 20th, and Culture, Climate, and Learning on Wednesday, the 28th. And then looking out towards future agendas, you can see some of the upcoming items, which are, not very well articulated at this point for the next few meetings, but some of those we've discussed in committees as well. So at this point, I will be looking for a motion to adjourn. The board has a meeting just following this. It's going to be a work session on goals and priorities, but we'll be adjourning our regular meeting to go to the work session.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, moved and seconded. Laurel?
just wanted to say that we are continuing on in a public meeting, and though it is legal for us to adjourn, and I understand the logistics are sometimes difficult when we're having sort of round robins and posting things up. Since we are all in the same location, it is uncomfortable for us to be adjourning to a location where we will not be able to share with the community the work we're doing on goal setting.
I mean, we've always had the goal-setting notes follow up and what our administration's proposed online. We've always had conversations over the past 8 years in a work session manner. It obviously is less formal than us sitting this far apart. If the board wants to stay in this session, the board has a right to do that, obviously. The only reason that in our planning of agendas, we planned the work session was because that's how the board has always done the conversation around goals and priorities. We've always brought everything back to the public agenda. So there's been minutes, and so I'm.
Yeah, and it's still a public meeting. We usually meet, when we have work sessions, we're usually on a different night, and I do appreciate the opportunity not to have another meeting scheduled. It was just since we were here, to me, it made sense to just go ahead and continue.
And I think my sense is also, to be able to have somewhat of a more informal conversation with, rather than the more, the formality of being around this table, to be in a different environment, around a small table to go through those. And obviously everyone's welcome to stay for it, so.
And the work session was advertised.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, I would imagine the next agenda should have, or at least the one after that will have as an information discussion item, further discussion of the goals. Okay, all right, so let's have I guess it's all in favor. We don't have to, it's just a voice call then for adjourning, right? Right. So, aye? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, we are adjourned.